Hashem Naaseh v'Natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Habayim. We're back here from Jerusalem live at 1:45 a.m. But of course, wherever you guys are, it's probably a different time. B'ezrat Hashem, we're gonna, as we promised, give you guys some handful tools to deal with everything that's going on in the world today, especially for the Jewish people, as we are under attack, we are in war, and there's simply no end in sight. At least that's what it seems for some people. And tonight's shiur is going to be very useful for anybody, needless to say, for the Jewish people or people that care about Am Yisrael, for your day-to-day life and how to deal with things, but only for people that actually care about Torah. If you don't care about Torah, then you may not necessarily find this to be useful to you. Tonight's shiur is going to be for the refuah shlema for Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Avi Mori David ben Asriya, Imi Morati Doris bat Jora, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahides that continue to support our organization and watch our lectures and donate their time, resources, and whatever they can to help us do all the wonderful things that the organization is doing. Anyone that wants to donate to our current campaign to help the poor and needy in Israel, as well as the soldiers that are getting tzitziot from us, please go to bhchesed.org, bhchesed.org, or you could simply donate on the regular website and just write a comment somewhere and let us know that it's for that particular campaign. Either way, there's obviously a lot to do, and that's actually the topic of the conversation tonight. There's a lot to do, and there's a lot going on, and right now, people are taking what's going on in the world in different ways, where you have some people are so anxious. There's so much anxiety right now going on into people's minds and hearts that they've literally become unpaid journalists, where they're spending every single waking hour looking for more news, looking at what the terrorists are saying, looking at what the Israel is saying, looking at what the propaganda is saying, looking at what everybody's saying. And it is similarly, quite frankly, it's quite similar to what happened when Corona was destroying people's minds more than it was destroying bodies. And people have become unpaid journalists. They just look at every news, every rocket, every bomb, every little peanut that somebody eats in the Middle East apparently has to be reported by you, not just by the news, because you have to share it. And and people are literally spending every waking hour looking at the news, or on another end, they've become so anxious at what's going on right now that they're so afraid of a new attack happening, or the war escalating further, or some other shoe that's supposed to drop, that they've gone to the point where they've become like deer in headlights. You know what deer in headlights are? If you've driven in the in America and other parts of the world that have very, very long highways in the woods, and then once in a while the unfortunate event happens where a deer crosses the road when you're driving, and sometimes when the deer looks at the headlights, he's apparently goes into shock, and he just stays exactly where he is, even though the car is coming at him at 80 miles per hour. And this can actually be very tragic. The point, not for the deer. Many times the deer survive, but the people don't. Point is that sometimes this happens to people, where anxiety overtakes them, and anxiety of the unknown, anxiety of what they think they know, anxiety of their desire or addiction to thinking that they can rule the world or run the world, because they have a lot of advice that they want to give God of how he should run his world, and all types of things like that. And this is, generally speaking, not a new thing, and it's not something that's going to go away anytime soon, unless people listen to this advice that I'm going to give you, that could really make you think about anxiety that you have right this second very differently. And in fact, one of the things that we've been trying to do over the last couple of weeks of giving you guys lectures several times a week, is to try to get your mind focused on what's important right now beyond the news, beyond the obvious that people died, people will continue dying, the war is on, the war will probably continue, there's going to be disappointments, and so on and so forth. There's much more important things to consider, because if you think of this world as the only world you're ever going to live in, then certainly the war is the most important thing that ever happened in your life. But if you think that this world is what our sages, our holy sages that explain to us what the Torah says, have explained to us, that this world is simply a corridor to the real world, the world that is eternal, the world that you in essence create yourself based on your actions here. Whether you do good or you do bad, that is going to have an effect on this eternal world. If you do the will of Hashem, you're going to be designing yourself an eternal world of good. And in fact, many worlds in some cases, if you actually help other people do that. But if you do things against God, then you're creating yourself what's called hell or GEHINNOM. And anyone that wants to know more details about GEHINNOM can watch our film called GEHINNOM. It's the first thing that you'll see on our YouTube page. It's a film that we released about in the last year or so, and it certainly helped quite a few people get a wake-up call of a lifetime that that made them change their life. Now, we're not going to talk about GEHINNOM right now. What we're going to talk about is really the things that are causing people anxiety and actually justify the anxiety that you have. In fact, probably increase it at first, and then let you know why it doesn't really matter. Why it doesn't really matter, all of the things that you're worried about. As we said last night, the war itself is advancing in ways that I would say everyone is going to end up being very disappointed. The enemy is going to be very disappointed when they see the level of destruction that they now have to deal with, and possibly even a revolution among their civilians. The Jewish people are going to be very disappointed because they're not going to get what they really want. Either the war is going to end sooner than what they expected, or it's going to go on for longer and could, chas v'shalom, even escalate to be a war with multiple countries. That could literally be the war of all wars, the Third World War, or the war of Gog and Magog that the Torah prophesizes that will happen before the end of days. And as I've told you guys, whether this is the end or the beginning of the end is not really relevant, because your role right now doesn't change. But at the same token, what we've seen over the last few weeks is that the belief system that people have had that was away from God has broken down and shattered, regardless of which belief system it was. The atheists realize they need God. When they have a bunch of terrorists that are drugged up with all types of drugs to make them lose any sensitivity to human life, even more so than what they've already been trained and programmed to think throughout their whole life since childhood, because that's what they teach their kids in Gaza. But in addition to that, they took drugs. And in fact, anyone that saw the recent clip that came out with interviews of some of these terrorists that were caught, about a half a dozen terrorists are talking about the plan of what Hamas actually was looking to do, how many people each person killed, and all the horrific details, and they're saying it with a straight face. They're not shy about it. They had their plan, and they mention names. They show their faces, and hopefully it's going to get translated to multiple languages so people really get to get a better idea of what the beasts look like. Because for now, one of the things that people are also shocked about is the world's reaction. the world's reaction. The people that were atheists were surprised at how much they need God. The people that were liberal to the point where they were supporting the Hamas and the Palestinians that wanted to come here even though they hate us, they realized that that was not exactly a very good idea. And even more than anything else, the people that thought that the world supports the Jewish people, are not disappointed. They're actually pretty surprised at how the allies that we thought we had are not supporting us. Because the enemies, we knew we had enemies. The number of enemies we have is surprising to many people. And how many of those enemies are actually being housed and groomed and living their lives in the allied countries. Because what the world is reporting right now are major protests of hundreds of thousands of civilians, which includes celebrities, includes athletes, includes Hollywood superstars, and even includes some Jewish people that obviously have forsaken their Judaism throughout their entire lives. But what we've seen is that many of them are actually supporting Hamas, supporting the attack on Israel, are condemning Israel's counterattack, Israel's right to defend itself. And in so many words, everyone is pretty much trying to tell Israel that they need to do something else. They can't kill their enemies because it's not fair. You have to let your enemy live, apparently, according to people. Now, if this was happening, if these protests were happening in Iraq, Iran, Syria, Yemen, or one of the other several dozen Arab countries that hate Israel already for as far as time goes, it wouldn't be a surprise. But the hundreds of thousands of people that are marching and supporting the hatred of Jews is happening in America, in the United States, our so-called friend. In fact, one of my friends that was in the army for many years and served told me that he's not sure how people believe that the so-called allies relationship between Israel and America, because for some people, even inside the army, they themselves consider Israel terrorists. So it's not exactly so clear whether we're friends or we're foes, but nonetheless, some people are surprised that there are tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of Americans marching in the streets saying pro-Palestine, with not just the desire for the Palestinian people to have a country, but the demise of Israel comes with it, where they're saying they're going to throw them to the ocean, they're going to put them in a gas chambers, and all the things that the Nazis wanted to do to us and did to us. These protests are never peaceful, as people are realizing very, very quickly, as some of the people that are rejecting these protests are getting attacked, and their lives are in danger. But the point is that this is actually happening in America. It's happening in Canada. It's happening in England. It's happening all over the world in the places where we thought we had friends. But we're realizing that even if we have some friends, the amount of enemies that are surrounding our so-called friends seems to outweigh them in power, outweigh them in opinion, outweigh them in voice, outweigh them in a lot of different things. So it seems like there's a lot to be stressed over, because even the so-called friends that Israel have and the Jewish people have, whether affiliated or unaffiliated, the reality is that terrorists and enemies of Israel don't care of whether you're a religious Jew or not. They simply hate Jews for the sake of hating Jews. Just like the Hitler, Yimach Shemo v'Zichro, and the Hamas, and anybody out there that's ever been an enemy of the Jewish people never really cared whether he's killing a religious Jew or a non-religious Jew. The reality is that right now all of the haters of Israel are using anything that they can use to justify their hate. They even include some of my videos, which they're making more and more popular, Baruch Hashem, whether it's our Torah teachings about how we're forbidden from being merciful during war because it puts soldiers' lives at risk, it puts the civilians' lives at risk on our side. And this is not something that we made up. We brought several sources from the Torah and this is, in reality, this is the not just the rule of the Torah, this is the rule of every army in the world knows that if you want to win a war, having mercy during a war is not to your advantage, to say the least. And while everybody wants Israel to be the only humanitarian army in the world, they quickly realize that our humanitarian behavior in the army has actually fueled the enemy and enticed the enemy to attack us. So one of the things people realize is that this so-called humanitarian behavior, this merciful behavior by the Israeli government over the last couple of decades has actually enabled the enemy to become much more forceful and much more dangerous than ever before. And we realized that it was a very, very serious mistake. Now, our Torah tells us that if we're in the middle of a war and we have to attack, whether it be a building full of enemies in there that may very well have some people that are civilians, may have some children in there, may have some women in there, whatever it has, but it certainly has a dangerous situation for us, we cannot take that into consideration. In fact, the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin, page 72a says, someone that comes to kill you, you have to kill them first. And the Rambam in Ilchot Avodah Zarah, chapter 10, Lacha number 1, also discusses this particular point even more extensively about fighting a war. And in fact, one of the places we have in the Torah, in the book of Numbers, in Hebrew it's called Bamidbar, the war against Midian, HaKadosh Baruch Hu commands us to have no mercy, not just against the Midianites, but against any enemy that we have a war with. And if anyone looks at that particular section in the book of Numbers, chapter 25, verse 15, you look at the commentary by Rashi or the Targum Yonatan, you'll see even more and more extensive language there telling us about how it's important for us to leave our hearts at home, because at a time of war, you have to make sure that you do whatever the job is to do to save lives. And if that means killing your enemy, then so be it. That's what war is. And in fact, if that wasn't enough for some of you, you could look at the writings of the Maharal. The Maharal in Sefer Be'er Agola, in Be'er 7, Perek 5. The Maharal says there's no mercy in war. Now, of course, when we say this, it sounds like we're vicious. But when the enemy implements this and they torture us and kill us and do whatever they want to us or to their other enemies, no one says a single thing. No one says a single thing. Why? Because the world expects more from the Jewish people. But the truth is that if the Jewish people actually followed the Torah, we wouldn't even have a war. And any war we would have, we would actually win simply because we would know the rules of God of how to fight a war. But more than anything else, a person must understand that when you're actually going to war, it's not just going to war with weapons, and it's also going to war today with technology, with propaganda, with words, and you have to take all of these things into account of what the enemy is going to use against you. And one of the things that the enemy is using very effectively is the media in order to put things in people's minds, to make them think the opposite of what reality is. And they say, look, they're advocating to kill children. They're advocating to kill civilians, forgetting that they're the ones that actually did it. Forgetting that the jihadists that they're training every single day, the Hamasniks, that they're literally breeding like they have grass, the mentality that they have over there, forgetting that this is what they do, and especially when you hear the interviews of these terrorists, they don't feel bad, they don't feel any remorse whatsoever about the horrible things that they did, and in fact, they wish they could do more. So, when you look at the situation now, and you see, wait a minute, on one end, we're surrounded by enemies. Then even our friends have themselves surrounded by more enemies. More civilians in America, more civilians in England, Canada, and other countries around the world are showing their true colors and their true belief, and their belief is that they are enemies of Israel. Even if they don't have a justifiable reason, even if they've never met a Jew in their life, even if they don't even actually know where Israel is on a map, but they've decided they're at war with us. And then when we fight back, they use our fighting against us in different propagandist ways. When we tell people what our Torah says, they use this against us, even though they're the ones that are actually doing much worse things. And people need to know that there is no winning of this war if HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't help you. There is no winning of any war if HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't help you. Because we're being attacked in so many different ways that even the experts, like Dr. Kedal, say that if there's a single Hamasnik left in the world after this war, we failed. This is like the biblical war where Hashem told Shaul, the king Shaul, to go to war against Amalek, and although Shaul annihilated the vast majority of Amalek, he left one alive, he left some of the sheep alive. Hashem said he failed. He failed. And in fact, he failed big time, because from that Amalek that he left alive, he reproduced and eventually gave birth to Haman, who nearly destroyed all of Am Yisrael, as we all know from the Purim story. So, mercy is not just something that you can't have according to the Torah, you can't afford to have. But when you say this to the public, they twist it in such ways they say, wait, you guys are vicious, you guys are Satanists, you guys are all types of things, forgetting that in reality, we're just saying what we're supposed to do, whereas the army is not necessarily doing all of that. We wish they did. The enemy, on the other hand, is not saying anything. They're just doing. And in fact, even the so-called criticizers out there that are not at war right now, whether it's the Americans or the British or anybody else out there, if you look at their history, they weren't exactly so merciful or humanitarian, whether it's the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki by the Americans, or the attack in different countries in the Middle East with, accusations of, weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist, or it's the colonization of different countries under very, very vicious rulings. Let's forget that. That happened. Yeah, we messed up. Oh, okay, so it's okay for you to mess up. Fine. The point is, Rabotai Karim, a person that is not connected and literally glued to God right now is bound to be so anxious because they cannot see any light in this world of darkness. At a time we're supposed to get remorse, mercy, support, anything, or just simply silence from the world, we're getting attacked more than ever. At a time where we got attacked we're seeing that the enemy is threatening to make things even worse, meaning that what they did was not enough according to them. So a person is bound to be anxious because they're seeing that everything is failing. Everything is failing. Now, the truth is, Rabotai, as we've said in the last couple of weeks, anyone that has an inkling of who runs the world knows that a Kadosh Baruch Hu created the world with a manual, and that manual is the Torah. And just like his creation, mankind knows that any time they invent something new and they want people to use it the right way, they have to provide instructions. They're not going to give you a phone without giving you instructions. Because if you don't know how to use the phone, you may use it as a door stopper. You may use it as something that it's not meant to do. So they provide you instructions. And the same thing with your microwave, and the same thing with your television, the same thing with anything else that you have, including your car. Everything has a manual. They're not depending on the fact that you've used a car in the past, or a phone, or anything else. Everything comes with a manual. Why? Because it's human logic that if you have a product that people have never used before, they're going to need a manual of how to use it. So if the creation is smart enough to know that you need a manual in order for people to know how to use the product, then needless to say, the creator also knows that the creation needs a manual, and therefore he gave us the Holy Torah. He gave us the Holy Torah, and the Holy Torah is our manual. It's our manual of how to serve God, how to prosper in this world by serving God, what to do, what does it mean to serve God, how to do it, how to be a good husband, how to be a good wife, how to be an honorable person, honest, what makes you a criminal, what makes you despicable, what makes you an idolater. All of the different things to do and not to do are in this manual called the Torah. Even inside the stories that are in the Torah, there are countless lessons to be learned. Now, many times we talk about the punishments, the consequences of our actions, not because it's a favorite subject, but simply because that is how the human mind works when it's free to think. If you look at the world around you, there are constantly warnings of different risks that you have. There's a warning on your microwave. There's a warning on your electric closet. There's a warning on in the traffic and on the roads. There's a warning in different places. Why? Constantly warning you of things that could possibly happen if you don't follow the instructions and if you violate the rules. The Torah also gives you countless warnings, and although people may view these warnings as horrible, terrible, sad, or whatever other thing that you could think of, the truth is, Rabotai, these warnings are what you're supposed to be happy about. Because now that you know the warnings, you know exactly what to do and what not to do. And one of the things that people ask me is, how do you get so much stuff done? Today, for example, anyone that follows my channels knows that we had a very, very big celebration here in Jerusalem, where there's a new Sefer Torah has been completed. Rabbi Ephraim and myself also completed some of the letters to complete the Sefer, and you can see that in the video. And then you can see countless people right here celebrating the holiness of the Torah. And it was a lot more than what you just saw. This was just a small little clip out of it. We went around the entire area over here. Everyone is dancing and celebrating, and the kids are having a good time, and all the families are out, and it's literally as if there's no war. literally as if we are all at Mount Sinai and we just received the Torah and we're all as excited as can possibly be. That's how it felt. I've been to a Achnasat Sefer Torah where we're getting a new Sefer Torah, where there was my own that was written many years ago, 20-something years ago, or other people that I've gone to, and I've been at other Achnasat Sefer Torah in the States. This is the first time I've actually been at one here in Israel, and I can tell you that there was a world of difference. Not because of Israel versus the United States, because certainly there are some very, very strong communities in the States as well, but rather because the ones that I've been to had people that attended, many people. They liked music, they liked to dance, and therefore they showed up. They liked music, they liked to dance, they liked to celebrate, they liked some free food, and therefore they show up. Here, on the other hand, the difference was there was an entire community, Baruch Hashem, that loves the Torah. And they showed up, and their love of the Torah made them dance. Made them happy. And it was a world of difference. So, having a Sefer Torah written, it's not an easy thing. Parties, events, not an easy thing. Under so much pressure, so many different lectures, not an easy thing. Food distributions that we're doing, the ones that you've seen in videos, the ones that you don't see, countless times helping different poor people, not easy. Setting up different events, not easy. Helping countless people with their personal problems, whether it's religious issues, family issues, marriage issues, children issues, needing certain sources in the Torah that they heard in a lecture but they can't find. Whatever it is, Baruch Hashem, around the clock. People ask me sometimes, when do you sleep? I tell them I sleep, Baruch Hashem, I sleep. When? I don't know, but I sleep. Everyone needs to sleep at some point. The question is, how much do you need to sleep? That's a different question. But apparently it seems like people are sleeping a lot. People are sleeping, if not physically, they're sleeping at the wheel because they're missing the opportunity of a lifetime. And what's the opportunity of a lifetime? The opportunity of a lifetime is really the secret behind the extraordinary amount of production that's in the organization that we have, Bezat Hashem, whether it's the Sefer Torah, or the new short films and clips that are being produced every single day, or the many other things that we've mentioned already. You see, our sages, aside from telling us that we have to follow the law, that we have to obey the law, that we have to not do bad things, that we have to honor God, fear God, they also told us, Chatof ve'achol, chatoch v'shti. What is chatof ve'achol, chatof v'shti? Grab and eat. Grab and drink. What is this? What are we? People that are looking to eat all day and drink all day? No. It says when it comes to mitzvot, when it comes to doing good things, good that's defined by God, not by your desires and your craziness. When it comes to doing the will of Hashem, grab whatever you can eat, grab whatever you can drink, meaning take as many opportunities as you possibly can, add as much pressure as you possibly can, do as much as you can, and guess what? After you're doing as much as you can, don't get comfortable. Do more. Do more. That's the opportunity. But then people are going to say, wait a minute. I'm okay if I can do it, when there was no pressure. Yeah, if you give me $100 million, I'm just sitting over there, I have no problems financially, no problems with my marriage, no problems with the kids, everything is working perfect, and therefore I could just press a few buttons, maybe go to a few meetings. Sure, but now you're telling me, people are struggling financially, people are struggling in their marriage, people are struggling raising their kids, people are struggling with the schools, people are struggling with their job, people are struggling with their neighbors, people are struggling with their different chemical imbalances, with their health, and more than anything else, right now, on top of everything, you've added a war. People are struggling with an anxiety that they've never met before. They've never met this anxiety they had before, especially right now, where in reality, if you're a Jew, and you're not glued to God, it's impossible for you to feel safe. Because you don't have to live in Israel to be afraid of terrorists, because they're in the streets protesting. And if given the opportunity, they'll take it even further. Anyone that has spent some time reading history about the Jewish people, you'll see that all of the massacres, all of the holocausts, all of the pogroms, inquisitions, and other tragedies that attacked the Jewish people throughout history started the same exact way. Protests, activists, people that believed in things that were the opposite of what the Jewish people believe, but expressing them in new ways, more vocal and eventually more violent. So a person that's now living in New York or in California or in London or anywhere else can't for a second feel safe if he's not glued to God, because he just saw in the news or even in real life 50,000 people marching down the streets saying they're looking for Jewish blood. And he saw in the news another 500,000 people in other places. He's seen rockets being shot at Israel from different places. He's seen all types of horrible things on the news, how things are being twisted, how they're interviewing leaders of terrorists organizations, supporters of terrorists, and actual terrorists, as if they're regular, decent human beings, having cordial conversations with them as if they're not talking about death here. So a Jew that's not glued to God right now is looking at the world and is like, what is going on here? Where is it safe? You can't even go to work without running into somebody that doesn't hate you and is expressing it now. Now don't get it twisted. They've always hated you. They just didn't express it because maybe it wasn't politically correct. It wasn't the right time to express that hate, or whatever other reason justified their silence. So we're talking about doing more good things and doing more mitzvot and honoring God and doing all these things that the rabbi is doing. It seems crazy. What are you talking about? So how am I doing it? And as I've always told you guys for the last 10 or so years, if I can do something, anybody can do it. So what makes it different? Our Holy Torah is a manual to serve God, but also a manual to know how to serve Him and how to benefit from it at the same time. In the Torah, in the book of Deuteronomy, Sefer Devarim, in Parashat Ki Tavo, chapter 28, it begins in verse number 45 and goes on to 47, where our point is. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, ובאו עליך כל הקללות האלה, ורדפוך והשיגוך, עד ישמדך, כי לא שמעת בקול אדוני אלוהיך לשמור מצוותיו וחוקותיו אשר ציווך. והיו בך לאות ולמופת, ובזרעך עד עולם, תחת אשר לא עבדת את אדוני אלוהיך בשמחה ובטוב לבב מרוב כל. All of these curses will come upon you and pursue you and overtake you until you are destroyed, because you will not have hearkened to the voice of Hashem, your God, to observe His commandments and decrees that He commanded you. They will be a sign and a wonder in you and in your offspring forever, because you did not serve Hashem your God amid gladness and goodness of heart, when everything was abundant. Here we see HaKadosh Baruch Hu promising us that after we forsook His law, ignored it, violated it, and didn't listen to the rebuke, didn't listen to the sages and the different speakers that told you to change, eventually Hashem has to get involved. Initially he sends a message in the books, but you don't listen. So he sends you a speaker to explain what the book says, but you don't listen. And he sends you different problems in your personal life, perhaps a health issue, financial issue, marriage issue, but you don't listen. And he sends you another message that makes things even worse, and you don't listen. And then eventually, Hashem picks up things to the point where you can no longer ignore it. As if initially he sent you a text message and you ignored it. He sent you a voice note and you ignored it too. An email, no answer. A letter to the house, a messenger that knocks on your door and gives you and hands you the letter certified, trying to warn you, telling you to turn things around, observe Shabbat, start becoming modest, abandon the illegal business and business dealings that are against the Torah. And you don't listen. Eventually, Hashem breaks down the door, and now you have no choice but to listen. Hashem broke down the door for all of the Jewish people over the last couple of weeks. No one feels safe after this door has been broken. And here HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us that it's all because we disobeyed Him. We did not follow the Torah. But He says something at the end that is of particular interest to all of us. He's telling us what was the worst of it. Violating the commandments, not so good. Disobeying the messages, not good. Ignoring the messages, terrible, but not. What was the worst part? Because you did not serve Hashem your God amid gladness and good heart. What does it mean in gladness and good heart? Isn't it enough that we didn't serve Him? I said, no. Hashem is not looking for you to help Him. He doesn't need your help. You see, Rabotai Karim, us serving God is for us, not for Him. And when a person doesn't understand that, and they think that they're doing God a favor, they could simply justify not doing it. Just like if you have a friend or a colleague that can help you get a better job, get a promotion. Usually if he asks you for a small favor, you're not going to have much of a problem doing it because you figure, listen, he can help me, why shouldn't I help him? But if this person can't help you, in fact, he acts like he needs you, as if you're his only hope. Oh, you really got to help me out. Give me this or give me that. Help me with this, help me with that. And he doesn't just do it once, he does it on a regular basis. After a while, if you don't like the guy, if you don't like the woman, if you don't like this person, simply say, listen, I don't feel like doing it. Maybe you'll say it in different words, but in general, just say no. That's not God. God doesn't need you. And He makes it very, very clear in the Torah that He doesn't need us. Because in fact, He's telling us that not only are we commanded to serve Him, but we have to do it with gladness. We have to do it with goodness of the heart. And when we didn't do it that way, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, that made the punishment magnified. The Gemara in Masechet Menachot, page 21, talks about the topic that we mentioned already last week about the obligation to wear tzitzit for Jewish people, where any time that you have a four-cornered garment, a Jewish male has to have a tzitzit, which are these strings. But if you're not wearing a four-cornered garment, then you don't have to wear a tzitzit. But the Gemara says that this is during normal circumstances. But if it's during a time where there's free reign given to the Satan as the angel of death, that he can kill any wicked people or anybody that is, in so many words, in his way, then the Satan even has the permission to kill somebody, even if they did not fulfill a mitzvah that they technically didn't have to fulfill, like tzitzit. Now, if we go further, and we go back 700 years, and we look into a book by Rabino Yonah called Sha'arei Teshuva, and we arrive at the third gate in section number 22. It talks about this Gemara. In fact, it explains this Gemara in an extraordinary way that connects what we said from Parashat Kitavo to this Gemara, to understand what it means to serve God with gladness. And Rabino Yonah, 700 years ago, writes the follows. Another example of the mitzvot of tefillin and of mezuzah are positive commandments associated with one's acceptance of God's sovereignty. And for this reason they are mentioned in a section of the Shema Yisrael. In this manner you will be able to reflect upon the punishment of one who neglects these mitzvot, for such a person breaks the yoke of heaven and severs his bonds. We have already begun discussing these mitzvot. But regarding the mitzvah of tzitzit, our sages said that tzitzit adds to one's holiness. And as the Torah says in Bamidbar, Book of Numbers, chapter 15, verse 40, that you may remember and perform all of my commandments and be holy unto your God. And although this mitzvah of tzitzit is only incumbent upon a person who has a garment of four corners, and one who does not possess such a garment is not required to buy one, nonetheless, our sages in the Gemara in Masechet Menachot, same place I just mentioned to you guys, says that when the difficult times come, he will surely be punished for not coveting the beauty of this mitzvah and its reward enough to forge the circumstances that lead to its obligation, acquiring a garment of four corners in order to place a tzitzit on them. Here, if you paid attention to the words carefully, you see that when Rabino Yonah explained to us the Gemara, he didn't just leave it at the words of the Gemara of saying that you were punished for not fulfilling this mitzvah when you had an opportunity. But rather, he connected what we said in Parashat Kitavo. He says, it's not just you didn't do this mitzvah. That's not the reason why you're being punished. But rather because you did not covet the beauty of the mitzvah and the reward that you will ultimately get for fulfilling it. Here Rabino Yonah uncovers the secret that every single person on planet Earth that wants to serve God must know. Not only does God not need you, not only do you need God and you need to serve Him with happiness, but in fact, the way that you can protect yourself and also elevate yourself to the highest point is by working on yourself to the point where you actually start coveting to do more mitzvot. Desiring to do more mitzvot. And imagining the reward that you ultimately get them. Because that's what serving God with happiness is. Why is this important? Because everything that Hashem gave us can be used for good or bad. Everyone knows in the 10 Commandments, it's forbidden for a Jew to covet. People covet each other's houses, covet each other's wives, husbands, bank accounts. People are constantly jealous of other people. They have an evil eye when they see other people succeed, other people attain things. Oh, she got married? I'm not married. Well, what does that have to do with you? She got married because she got married. Why does it, her getting married, somehow have a reflection on your status? Why can't you just be happy for her? Oh, you got a new job? That much money? I don't even have a job. Well, why does him getting a job have anything to do with your job status? Oh, they got a new house? Psh, where did they get that kind of money? What difference is it to you where they got that kind of money? It didn't come from your bank account or else you'd know it. Oh, he's got another car? How could he afford it? What difference is it to you how he could afford it? Is he borrowing money from you? Does he owe you money and doesn't want to pay? People are constantly upset that other people are succeeding beyond them or have things that they don't have. And they're violating the Torah on a regular basis in such a way where they've become nonchalant about it. Open about the fact that they are jealous. Open about the fact that they hate it when other people succeed. Open about their jealousy to the point where they don't see anything wrong with it. They don't see anything wrong with it. They think it's perfectly fine to be upset that somebody else has more than them. It's perfectly fine to be upset at God for not giving them more, as if God owes them something. Even though the Torah tells you you're not allowed to do such a thing. So Rabino Yaron says, you see, God told you not to covet. But yet, He allows you to covet. Why would He allow you to covet? Isn't that putting a trap in front of a blind man? Stumbling block? No. Rather, it's because everything that Hashem created, as Rabbi Akiva says, at the end of Masechet Brachot, everything that the Merciful One did, He only did it for the best. Meaning, you can use everything He gave you and make the best thing out of it. The pain can be to your advantage. The loss can be to your advantage. The agony can be to your advantage. The difficulty can be to your advantage. The wins can be to your advantage. The losses can be to your advantage. Everything can be to your advantage. Everything that the Merciful One did can be to your advantage if you know how to use it. And therefore, coveting, jealousy can actually be to your advantage, even though it's not allowed to use it in certain ways. How? By using it the right way. Instead of being jealous of somebody else's car, jealous of somebody else's wife or husband, jealous of somebody else having kids, jealous of somebody else's popularity, jealous of somebody else's anything. You should be jealous of other people's mitzvot. But quickly realize that you can do it too. You may not be able to do it as big, as grand as they did, but you can certainly do it. And therefore, Rabino Yaron tells us it's not just that you didn't wear the tzitzit, that's the reason why you're getting punished when the times are rough, when there's a decree to allow the Satan to kill whoever's in his way. It's not just that you didn't wear tzitzit, it's that you lost the opportunity of a lifetime because you took one of Hashem's tools, the ability, the desire, and you used it in the wrong way. Instead of looking at mitzvot as opportunities to get closer to Hashem, as opportunities to serve your purpose in the world, as opportunities to elevate your reward, what did you do? You looked at them as something that maybe I'll get to it later, or I don't feel like it at all, I'm too busy with materialism. And instead, you used all of your energy to covet other people's materialism. Some people desire sins. We need to desire mitzvot. We need to desire mitzvot. Now, imagine this, that there was once a king, and the king made a special day where he's to show his glory and power. He said anyone that comes can ask for whatever they want. Of course, everyone lines up, each person with his requests. And the first one comes and he asks for financial help, and the king grants him. And the second one comes and needs help with doctors because he has health issues. The wish is granted. Another one needs help because of some legal issues. He gets granted. And the line goes, and one after another goes through, and the king helps each and every single one of them. And then the time comes, and the door is about to be closed. The king says, okay, is there anybody else left before we shut down? And one of the servants says, yeah, there's one guy by the door. There's one guy by the door. He says, okay, get him. I'm waiting, let's just finish it. And the servant comes to this guy that's by the door. He says, okay, come in. No, I'm not coming in. Well, didn't you come see the king? Yeah, I came to see the king, but I'm busy now. What are you busy with? I'm busy right now, I'm scratching my head. What? Scratching your head? The king's waiting. Yeah, I can't say, I'm busy scratching my head. Okay, fine. I mean, you're not going to scratch your head forever. Well, what are you going to do after you scratch your head? Or after that, I have a plan. I'm going to scratch my back. What? You're going to scratch your back? What do you mean you're going to scratch your back? The king's waiting for you. Listen, king no king. My back needs scratching. After you finish scratching your back, what are you going to do? You going to come see the king? No, I can't. Why? Because I have to go change my socks. They got wet. Now after this, the servant goes to the king. He tells the king all of this. Do you think the king's going to be happy with this guy? He's going to answer his requests? He's going to wait for him? No. He'll be lucky if he's alive. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us an opportunity every single day to come talk to him. We go pray. We pray in the morning, we pray in the afternoon, we pray at night. We ask for stuff. We ask. And Hashem says, fine, ask. No problem. But then somebody says, you know what, listen, I'm too busy for God. He wants us to ask by going to Him, by doing a mitzvah, by doing what He says. I'm busy right now. What are you busy with? I'm busy scratching my head. But didn't you need money? Like you were going bankrupt or something? Yeah, bankrupt, no bankrupt. I need to scratch my head. Well, after you finish didn't you need help with health? Your wife or your cousin or somebody's sick? Yeah, people are sick and terrible thing, but I need to scratch my back too. Well, aren't you afraid of like the terrorists and the anxiety and all that stuff? Yeah, no, it's all true. Okay, so why don't you go see the king? No, listen, I can't, I'm busy. Why? I need to change my socks. He's busy with materialism. He's busy with stupidity. He's busy with sharing the news as if he's become some journalist. He's busy with doing nothing. And he's missing the opportunity of a lifetime to go see the king. As Shlomo HaMelech says, Chacham lev yikach mitzvot. A wise man grabs mitzvot. If you're looking for opportunities to do more mitzvot every single day, that is certainly a sign of wisdom. Why? Because it shows that you're looking for opportunities to connect to the Creator. You're looking for opportunities to serve a purpose in this world. But if you're looking for ways to avoid mitzvot, it's quite the opposite. Now, Shlomo HaMelech said in the book of Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, in chapter 9, verse number 10 and 11, whatever you are able to do with your might, do it. For there is nothing doing, nor reckoning, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave where you are going. Here Shlomo HaMelech clarifies how to achieve the purpose of life. Under no condition should you ever waste time. Never waste time watching the news. Never waste time doing nothing. Never waste time. Why? Shlomo HaMelech says, whatever strength you have within you, use it to do everything you possibly can. Why? Because once you go into the grave, nothing will help you. What does it mean nothing will help you once you go to the grave? We all know that once you go to the grave, that's it. You can't enjoy this world anymore. Shlomo says, no, you're not understanding. Once you go to the grave, the only desire that your soul still has is any mitzvah that you possibly can get. Any mitzvah. Because that's the only thing that can help it. But it can't do any mitzvah. Even if it's a small mitzvah. Wash your hands. Can't do it. Say Birkat HaMazon. Can't do it. Put on tefillin. Can't do it. Give a compliment to your spouse. Can't do it. Pay for tuition for your kids to go to yeshiva. Can't do it. Support Torah. Definitely can't do it. What mitzvah can you do? Nothing. And the only desire you have once you pass away is to do mitzvot. In fact, the amount of suffering that the soul endures from its desire to do mitzvot is pain that no human being that's alive can handle. And therefore Shlomo HaMelech says, the wisest man of all, while you're alive, while you have some air in your lungs, while you have the ability to do something good, to give your time, your knowledge, your resources, to support the Torah, to serve God, to help His people get closer to Him. While you can still do it, do it. Because no one promises you tomorrow. And I can assure you that once you're in the grave, it's the only thing that you will desire. You're not going to miss your kids. You're not going to even miss your spouse. You're not going to care about the bank account you left behind or the vacation you planned. You're certainly not going to care about your friends and definitely not going to care about your enemies. The only thing you're going to care about is, how can I do another mitzvah? Because that's the only currency in this place called afterlife. You see, Rabotai Karim, Shlomo HaMelech is telling us that you that are watching right now, alive and well, that are wasting your time watching the news or doing nothing with your life, you're making a very big mistake. Because you can channel all of this anxiety that you have, this fear of mankind, this fear of the unknown. You can use all of that energy to do more mitzvot, to publicize more Torah, to help more people get on the train of God before it's too late, to help more people abandon heresy and idolatry, to help more people do more mitzvot that actually matter and not some imagination that they invent. You have an opportunity of a lifetime right now to save the last few people before the end really comes. Just imagine. We're in the Holocaust. The Nazis are killing at will. And you have an opportunity to save 1 million Jews. You have an opportunity to save 1 million Jews. Now the Zionists, Imach Shimam V'Zichram, had that opportunity. But as I've spoken to you guys about in other lectures, it's a well-known, documented story of how the Zionists didn't care for Jews. They cared for land. They cared for notoriety. They cared for power. And therefore, they rejected the offer from the Nazis to release 1 million Jews. There's a whole book written about it called Perfidy, but it's also mentioned in many, many other books that discuss the real history of what happened with Zionism and all the evil that they've done. But we're not here to talk about Zionism. We're here to talk about you. You that are watching right now, at some point of your day, whether you're at almost 3 o'clock in the morning like me, or you're early evening in America, wherever you are in the world, you have an opportunity to save 1 million Jews right now. Before HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends the Mashiach, before the war of Gog uMagog changes the world in ways it never knew possible, before there's no more time to do tshuva, you have an opportunity to save 1 million Jews. It's not like saving Jews a month ago, a year ago, or 10 years ago. Because then it was almost the last stop. But not quite. Now everyone knows. The last stop, it's coming. Or it's here. Instead of saving those 1 million Jews by sharing more Torah lectures with them, to help them learn what Shabbat is, to help them learn the value of a purpose, of having a purpose in life, to help them learn what God wants from them and commands from them and why they need to do it, and He doesn't need them to do it. to help them learn the answers to all of their questions and seeing how they all have sources in the Torah, answers in the Torah. You have an opportunity to do that right now. You can save 1 million people by pressing a button, by supporting, by doing what every single smart person should be doing right now, Jew or Gentile, which is using every single ounce of energy that they have to be productive right now. When you're at work, you're working for somebody, it's giving you a paycheck, be the best you possibly can be. So that way, you can be productive and you could justify even getting an increased salary, a promotion, have further success in natural ways, but also opening new doors and new avenues that are not available to you right now, because those avenues could also help you in the Jewish outreach, the KIRUV that you want to do, the mitzvahs that you want to do. But when you're not working, you have to work even harder. When you're not working at your job, you have to work even harder to use every single ounce of your energy to covet mitzvot, to covet opportunities to help people discover the truth about the Torah and God. To spend every ounce of your energy looking for more things that you can do to show God your loyalty, to show His children that you care about them and you want them to know the truth about Him. If you understand the value of a mitzvah and its reward, it becomes easier to covet them. It becomes easier to be productive. But if you're sitting there all day, doing nothing, wasting time, not being productive, looking at the computer, listening to music, watching the news, not doing your best, I can tell you without a single ounce of doubt that you will become your own biggest enemy after you die. You will hate yourself more than anybody else in the world hates you. In fact, you'll hate yourself more than Hamas hates us. Why? Because the second you understand the value of one mitzvah, needless to say, the value of the mitzvah of helping another Jew do tshuva, the mitzvah of being honest, the mitzvah of publicizing Torah, the mitzvah of simply following what God says with pure happiness. When you understand the value of that mitzvah, and then you'll realize how much time you wasted. That instead of doing your job, you're wasting time. You're playing on the internet. You're walking around looking at clouds. You were doing all types of things that wasted time. Needless to say, you defiled your brain with news and movies. You're going to hate yourself for it. You're going to despise yourself for it. It's like somebody that has a lotto ticket, and it was just announced that the grand prize in the Powerball, Mega Ball, or whatever they call it there in America, is $2 billion. And there's only one winner. And you bought a ticket. You bought a ticket. And you've always bought tickets. But you've never won. At least nothing meaningful. And now you heard $2 billion. Certainly got to buy a ticket. How could I miss this opportunity? But on the night that they announced the winner, just a few hours before, you decide that you want to empty out the pockets in your jacket, clean it up, send it to the dry cleaner, and in the process, you throw out the ticket. And you throw out the ticket, and you watch the numbers that you picked were announced. But that ticket is gone. The sanitation department has already picked it up. All of the filthy things inside the truck have already destroyed it beyond recognition. But you know the number is the number that you picked because it's been the same number you've picked for 20 years. And you know you just won the grand prize, but you lost the ticket. And there's no one in the world that feels sorrow like you do, because you had the winning ticket, but you mindlessly wasted it. That horrible feeling is not even 1% of the feeling that you will get for wasting time in this world, not doing mitzvot, not following what the sages said of chatof ve'achol, chatof ve'shti. Grab and eat, grab and drink, whatever mitzvot you can possibly do. Needless to say, the big ones of publicizing Torah. Yeah, but I'm busy. Busy? Who's busy? Who's too busy to get $2 billion? Yeah, but I have anxiety. Who cares about anxiety? I can get $2 billion. Yeah, but I have problems. Put your problems aside and go collect the $2 billion. In fact, if you really believed in the Torah and in the reward that you get from mitzvot, and you took everything we said to perspective, anxiety is gone. Not because everything becomes good. It's terrible. But there's no time. There's simply no time to think about terrible. I got to do mitzvot. What can I do today? You need some help? I'll help you. He needs some help? I'll help him too. I need to pray? Fantastic. In fact, let's look for stuff that I can pray about. Oh, I can smell this, and since it has a good smell, I can make a blessing for it. And since this one is from a tree, that's a certain blessing. That one is from oil, that's a different blessing. That one's from a plant, that's a different blessing. That's from a fruit. Ooh, it's a different blessing. Righteous people look for ways to bless God. Look for ways to serve Him, because they understand that that's ultimately not just their purpose, but the only way to truly attain happiness forever. But that happiness is in this world. You think the people here in this neighborhood didn't hear about what happened? Didn't see the missiles over us over the last couple of weeks? We saw. We heard. We know. When you have an opportunity to dance for the Torah, to celebrate the Torah, yes, that very same Torah that we got 3,334 years ago, and from that day on, everyone hates us. Meaning the same Torah everybody hates us about, the same Torah that distinguishes us from everyone, the same Torah that they've been chasing us and killing us for the last 3,000 years, that's the one we dance for. Why? Because it's the best. So if I have an opportunity to fulfill another mitzvah, to be more productive, to find new ways, to use the energy that I have, however much of it I do, certainly I will. Because only a crazy person will waste their time on anything else but being productive. Now, I can tell you that this is also a very, very good skula for someone that wants special things to happen for them. As Rav Mordechai Eliyahu alav Shalom, who was an extraordinary tzaddik and mekubal, said that if there is a certain prayer that you need answered in heaven, let's say you want to have a kid and naturally haven't succeeded yet. You want to get a help with parnasah, but it hasn't succeeded yet. You want to find a zivug, but it hasn't succeeded yet. Whatever your prayer is that you've been praying on and doing whatever you can on. He said, take substantial amounts, something significant that you're going to use to support Torah. And before you give it, say in your mind. You could say it out loud too if you'd like, but you don't need to. God knows what's in your mind. This tzedakah that I'm giving to support the Torah is for the merit of the soul that will be first to bring my prayers to Hashem and help them get answered. Fight for them to get answered. Argue for me to be answered. If they bring my mitzvah first, whoever's first to go fight for me in heaven, to be my attorney in heaven, forgot to answer my prayers, the merit of this mitzvah will go to him, will go to her. Rav Mordechai Eliyahu says, this is baduk, checked, and it works. Why? Because as I said earlier, the greatest desire that a soul has after it leaves this world is any mitzvah. But they can't do it. Now you gave them the opportunity. You gave them the opportunity by saying, listen, you have an opportunity to gain this mitzvah of charity that I just gave to support Torah. How? Take my prayers that I prayed for me to have a kid. Take my prayers that I prayed to have shlom bayit, that I prayed to have such and such. Take my prayer, bring it to Hashem. Bring it to Hashem and fight for me. Convince the Bet Din of heaven to answer my prayers. You do it, you just got yourself a mitzvah. This, Rabotai, perhaps will give us a little bit of better perspective of why, as horrible as things are outside, with all the things that are going on among our enemies and needless to say among our friends and allies, we have plenty to do to keep us busy and in fact happy. There's no room for anxiety. There's no room for wasting time. And unless you have some type of strange desire to hate yourself, to despise yourself, to be an enemy of yourself for eternity, you're going to change that state of mind that you have that's full of anxiety and waste of time and lethargic, always tired, always lazy, and throw it in the garbage. Because time is of the essence. With that being said, I'll answer a few questions, but then call it tonight because we have another lecture tomorrow with you guys anyway, and needless to say, it is late. So let's see if there's any good questions I could answer, and we'll go from there. Let's see. given only, what? Shalom Kol, given only Hashem determines the result, and we can only rely on Hashem, why do we even bother to explain to the hypocritical nations? Well, if you notice, the people that are using their time to explain anything to hypocritical nations are usually not following the Torah. When we explain what we explain about what's happening to the Jewish world is really for the Jewish people to understand so they don't get confused by the hypocrisy that's out there. Oh, I watched the video of the Torah, and it was like there was no war. Yeah, exactly. It's complete happiness, Baruch Hashem. Any mitzvah that kids can do, sure. Kids can learn Torah. They could do chesed, help people that are in need. They could certainly help their parents if necessary. There's plenty of things that kids can do, sure. Let's see here. We're going to the TikTok feed. Let's see how many terrorists are here and how many decent people are here. Usually there's more terrorists than decent. Okay, there you go. How can you donate? You can donate on our website. Go to be'ezrathashem.org, be'ezrathashem.org, or bhtorah.org, or simply look me up on the internet, Yaron Reuven. You'll see the many websites and we have for our organization, campaigns, and you can donate over there if you'd like. Oh, here's the guys that are trying to report me. Yeah, keep reporting. You are deleting my messages. I didn't even know you were sending messages to delete them. No, as you can see, there's plenty of your friends that are terrorists that I'm not deleting them. So no, I don't have time to delete anybody's message. I don't delete messages. Does Torah really have what supports the killing of Gazan children? No, it's not just specifically Gazan children. It's anyone that's an enemy of the Jewish people, that's at war with us, that's threatening to kill us, or is killing us. We have no permission to be merciful on people that are trying to kill us, because that would end up leading to our lives being lost. It's not that we're going and to kindergartens and attacking kindergartens. No. It's if there's, for example, a building full of terrorists, but it also happens to have civilians in there. If there's no other way to get rid of these terrorists that are trying to kill us, other than having the collateral damage in it as well, then that's it. You have to do it. I'll tell you even something more, okay? Just so you people understand that it's how honest the Torah is and how valuable Jewish life is. So you guys understand, because you're probably never going to hear this, at least not in English. In Hebrew you'll hear it, because there's plenty of Torah scholars here that are very, very honest and good. But I'll tell you this. According to the Torah, and even according to law here, if there is a person that gets a Jew that is taken as a hostage, or is about to be taken as a hostage, and he knows that if they take him as a hostage, they could torture him, they could do a lot of horrible things to him, and so on. There are poskim that allow him to kill himself before they do that, just like Shaul, the king, in the Torah, did it. Furthermore, if there is a building full of terrorists. And we know that if these terrorists get out of this building, or in so many words, permitted to continue, more Jewish lives will die. But the problem is that there's one Jew among those terrorists. That they took a hostage, let's say. Let's say they took a Jewish hostage, and they're surrounding them by terrorists, and they're thinking that since as long as there is one Jew among them, then they're, the Jews can't defend themselves. Wrong. In fact, if the survival of the terrorists, the survival of the enemy, could mean more Jewish deaths, we have to take no consideration of even that Jewish person that lives among them. That's a hostage. Meaning, kill him too. Not because we want to kill a Jewish life. Obviously, he's our brother. But rather because we cannot allow his life to cause many, many more deaths of other Jewish people. So, the Torah is telling us that we have to do whatever we can to minimize death, to minimize destruction, to minimize evil. But minimizing death, evil, and so on has a price. Has a price. And any normal human being that actually is thinking with their brain rather than with their heart and with propaganda will understand that. But people that are stupid or choose to be dumb are going to say, no, this is now you're even advocating to kill your brothers. Now you're even advocating, you just want to kill everyone. These are dumb people. Can't help people like that. You know, even Einstein knew that the two things that he believed are endless space and the level of human stupidity. Those are two things that he believed had no end to them. He was right at least on one of them. And it's not the space part. The problem is that most people think that we're just, looking to kill, or we're just looking to target civilians. It's the opposite. There's no religion, no people has ever brought more mercy to the world than the Jewish people. In fact, if you look at the wars that the Jewish people have fought throughout all of history, you'll find that the overwhelming majority of them are ones that we were attacked and we had to respond to. You're not going to see the Jewish people go attack just random people just because we were trying to conquer land. It's never happened. Even in the Torah, only if God commanded us to go and attack someone, did we go attack them. So it's important for a person to know that if you're going to look at the situation from a actual fact base, you'll see that the Torah, the Jewish side, is always right. If you're going to look at it from certain bias that you have, emotions that you have, the propaganda that's out there, then it doesn't matter what we say. You're going to find something wrong with it. So again, it's as far as having collateral damage, which will include civilians and minors and so on. That's not only something that we take account of, but we know it's destined to happen. The difference between us and others is that we admit that this is destined to happen, while other people do it and target civilians, as these terrorists actually specifically said in their interviews. They were targeting civilians. They weren't targeting soldiers. So it's obviously, there's a world of difference between reality and what people think. The kidnapped Jews, all I can tell you is that the numbers are much higher than what they're reporting in the media. They recently admitted that there's well over 220. that have been kidnapped. It's most likely much more than that. May Hashem have mercy on them and allow them to be released and come home. But even if they're released and they come home, you could pretty much be certain that they're traumatized forever and they're never going to have a normal life unless they have some extraordinary, tshuva that is going to get them so close to Hashem that they're going to make this traumatizing experience a stepping stone to their elevation spiritually. But if they don't do that, even if they're released, they're going to have very, very difficult lives, because there's no end to the suffering that they could be enduring right now. And even if it's not physical for all of them, it's certainly physical for some of them, and needless to say, it's mental for all of them. The mental anguish and suffering that each one of them is enduring right now has literally no end, because they're literally being they were kidnapped by monsters. It would be surprising to me if every one of the cases has a positive end. But I'm hoping. I pray for each one of them to come home and hopefully do tshuva, and Bezat Hashem will have mercy on them, regardless of which one it is. But the situation is horrific. It's horrific. It's not something that is going to have an easy solution. I can tell you that for sure, some people that have been hostages, and even some people that thought about this deeply, said that multiple times. One father, actually, in this particular massacre that took place, said that he was very happy when he found out that they killed his kid. He was very happy, even though he was very sad about losing his kid, but he was very happy that they killed him before they turned him into a hostage, because he knew that the suffering would be much more if they took him as a hostage. I can't imagine the level of suffering that they're dealing with, their families are dealing with. But I can tell you that the same God that allowed this to happen could also undo it, could also fix it, could also make the situation drastically better. But we have to convince him that we are better, than what we were before this happened. By publicizing his Torah, by doing tshuva, by following everything that he says. And I know that some people are going to say, no, come on, how could you say that? That's what Torah says. You have a problem with the Torah and what it says, then go to God and complain to him. Complain to him. I didn't write the Torah. I'm just simply telling you what it says. Why are you not helping those in need? I'm not helping those in need? Really? What do you know about what I do? Other than watching the video right now and not being able to understand a single word. What do you actually know about what I do? Let's see. Report him. I guess your reporting is not working. Oh, nonsense. Israel killed over 3,000 kids in 2 weeks. How many have to die before they're satisfied to cease fire? Well, if Israel does the job the way that they're supposed to, then Gaza will turn into a farmland or maybe a soccer field, and there will be no kids over there at all. They would all be living in a different place. And if the Palestinians that live there have a brain in their head, they would simply leave before all of this happens and go somewhere else. Go to the desert, go to Egypt, go to hell for all I care. Doesn't make a difference where you go. Go somewhere else. Why? Why don't I care? Because as we said, anyone that lives there is either a terrorist or a terrorist enabler and supporter. Because if you weren't, you would not allow Hamas to have their missiles being shot out of your bedroom. You would not allow Hamas to have their weapons inside a hospital and shooting rockets from the roof. You would not allow Hamas to do everything that they did. And in fact, you would not send your kids to get training by Hamas and publish the videos. You would not run in the streets celebrating that Jewish people have been murdered after they did. So the people that live there are not living under terror. They are terrorists or supporters of terrorists. So if they don't want to be terrorists anymore, if they weren't terrorists until now, very good. Move to a place where you'll have nicer neighbors. Whether that's the desert or that's in a different country, wherever it is, move there. Because obviously, that particular place is so infested after getting billions of dollars from different countries around the world, including Israel, and the Israeli government. Hamas has used all of these resources to build a terror nation. The whole place is like landmines. It's not a place for civilians to live normal lives. It's not a place for civilians to develop themselves. It's not a place for anything good to come out. What was the last thing that was good that came out of that place? Nothing. Nothing good comes out of it. Now, the clever ones that actually want to live these decent lives have left Gaza, have come to Israel or other countries, and built themselves a life. Some of them have become doctors, some have become engineers, some have become teachers, some have become newscasters, all types of things, and they live decent lives. And as long as they're not undercover terrorists that are just playing doctor and playing newscaster, as long as they're not one of those, they're living decent lives. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. But the reality is that when you see the other Arab countries, whether it be Saudi Arabia or Egypt or any of the other ones, reject the people of Gaza themselves, they also reject them. What do you want us to do? Help them? After they killed us? After they threatened to kill us even more? After they keep shooting hundreds of rockets at us every day? I mean, you have to be like a new level of stupid to think that's a good idea. You wouldn't do it. So, this is the thing that everyone has to consider. If peace was really an option, then answer this. If a bunch of Palestinians leave Gaza, and they all are decent human beings, They're not murderers. They're not rapists. They're not people that are hiding guns and bombs under their mattress. They're people that want to live a decent life. Okay? They don't have to be experts. They could be, I don't know, they could work on cars. They could work in buildings. They could do whatever they want. If they want to go to Israel and build their life, let's say they want to do that. You know what happens? Israel accepts them. How do I know? Because there are millions of them living in Israel right now. We're not talking about that land. We're talking about they're living in Israel right now. They have jobs all over the country. Some of them are very, very successful. In fact, some of them have become outspoken activists that are pro-Israel to show the world that the propaganda that you see in the news of how the Hamas is the victims and Gaza is victims, it's all nonsense. Palestinians that live here that have decent lives are pro-Israel more than they are pro-Palestine or anyone else. Why? Because they know that if the Palestinian of Hamas comes to Israel and rule Israel, Chas v'shalom, they'd kill the Palestinians too. They'd kill everybody. Just like they're killing everybody in Hamas or turning them into terrorists. So if you had 50 Palestinians want to come and live in Israel and have a decent life, guess what? They'd be able to live a decent life. And the proven proof of it is that there are many more than 50 here. Millions are here. On the other hand, if you have 50 Jews that want to come to Hamas, to Gaza over there, not even to live forever, not even to take your jobs that don't actually exist, but simply to visit, to go sightseeing of all the damage that took place there, or whatever the debris that you have everywhere, whatever, they just want to go see. They want to go see all the terror cells that you had, the Museum of Terror Cells. You know what happened with them? They'd never come out of there. 50 Palestinians come to Israel, they can thrive. They can succeed. They can be happy. 50 Jews enter Gaza. If they're not entering with a massive firepower, they're also never leaving. That's the difference. That's the difference. So, if you know that we can't enter there and survive, that means we can't coexist in peace. And if somebody says, no, if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone, we obviously say that's not true. Because 2 weeks ago, they broke the border and they massacred us. And it was also discovered that they had instructions to take over land. Take possession of land, kill everybody in sight, and also pay each person that gets a hostage $10,000 and give him a house. That was the price for every single hostage that they took. The Hamas leadership made a bounty on any hostage. They'll give the terrorist that took a hostage a house and $10,000. How do I know this? The terrorists themselves publicized it. So don't tell me that they're decent people. And don't tell me that it's just a few of them. Because when you have rockets coming out of houses and hospitals and factories, then you obviously see that the civilians are very much involved in the war as much as the people that are more active. Some are active with weapons, some are active with other things. Point being is, if they wanted to be decent human beings, they wouldn't live there in the first place. They wouldn't live there in the first place. So the Torah perspective of what should happen here Unfortunately, they're not going to follow the Torah. They're not going to follow what I say. I wish they would, but they're not going to follow. Torah perspective is, the place has to be completely emptied out. Anyone that chooses to stay there and become part of the debris, their blood is in their hands. Anyone that wants to save themselves and move on to somewhere else is also welcome to do it. They can move. But from the Torah perspective, the war would have lasted maybe 15 minutes. But the Zionist government is trying to please the world with the way that they're doing things, and they're trying to target things specifically as if there's anything good to save. So whatever. Either way, it's never going to be the same. I can tell you that. I can't wait to hear your screams from the 7th level of hell. Well, that means that you're assuming that you're also going to be there. So, I didn't realize that you're that stupid until you spoke. You should have kept it a secret. No one knew how dumb you are. Really, it's a shame that you really unveiled the secret. Why is Jewish life more valuable than others? Well, no one is saying that your life is not valuable. No one is saying that your life is not valuable. But you have servants of the king. Now, if the king has multiple servants, one servant does basic things, prepares the kitchen, cleans the bathrooms, does decent things. Another servant does nothing, absolutely nothing. In fact, sometimes he even goes and helps the enemy. And the third servant takes care of everything else. He takes care of the army. He gives praises to the king. He makes sure that everyone knows how great the king is. Now, if you were that king, which one of those servants would you value the most? The one that goes to the enemy, like the atheists and the heretics do? The ones that does some basic things, like clean the kitchen and the bathroom, like some decent, righteous Gentiles do? Or the ones that praise the king constantly and take care of everything, take care of the army, take care of the civilians, take care of all the possible opportunities out there to serve the king, like the righteous Jews? Which one would you consider most valuable? Obviously, the one that takes care of everything. Now, this doesn't mean that all Jews are in the last class where they're serving, because we all know that not all Jews serve God the same way. Some Jews are very wicked. You have the Karl Marx started communism. He was not only anti-Torah, he was anti-God. And the people that followed him, that ran communism, which led to tens of millions of deaths, of lives being lost, both Jews and Gentiles. So these were Jews, obviously wicked Jews. There are certainly wicked Jews in the past and wicked Jews in the present. They are not in that first class that I told you that are doing the best things. They're in the worst part. They're the ones that they're not even a servant. They're the ones that go to the enemy. They're the ones that commit treason, like idolaters and heretics and enemies of the king. So their life is certainly not worth more than the decent Gentile that's doing some basic things. But the ones that are Torah scholars, that dedicate their lives to learning Torah, to doing mitzvot, to following the entire Torah that God gave, obviously they're worth a lot more. Why? Because they do more. And guess what? You can be like that too. How? By doing more also. Simple. Now, if you think that everyone deserves the same, then you have a communist mentality. Perhaps you would agree with Karl Marx, but that's not God's way. It's the opposite of God's way. In normal civilization, communism is not good. In normal civilization, there is a priority list, there is a list of responsibilities, there's a list of roles, there's a list of important to lesser important. There is good, there's evil, there's black, there's white, there's differences. That's just a reality. Anyone that thinks that there should be equality among everything is simply a communist, and communism is anti-God. Can you answer my question? I'm curious. Well, I don't know what your question is. You might be safe now, but you will answer to Allah in the end. I actually speak to Allah every day, and Allah hates you and loves me. Let's see. What else? No. Rabbi, get me a job on Wall Street. I'm not working on Wall Street anymore, so I was there for 16 years. And for anyone that wants to know the movie of why I left Wall Street and started becoming a rabbi, to watch the film called Hashem Took Back His Millions. On my YouTube channel, you'll be inspired as long as you still have a human pulse. I'm Muslim and I totally agree with you. Good for you. It means you have a healthy mind. That means you could become another one of the righteous Gentiles among the world. In fact, I have several students that are used to be Muslims and came to the world of Torah. Some of them even converted to Judaism. Others became righteous Noahides. But the common denominator among all of them is that they were all decent human beings that were looking for the truth. Let's see. How do I convert? You can go to my website, be'ezrathashem.org, beezrathashem.org. There's a section over there on one of the tabs for converts. You'll see you'll be able to download syllabus. It gives you instructions of the different things you need to learn and do for the sake of conversion. You'll need to move to a Jewish community. You'll need to learn certain things, change certain lifestyles. Takes some time. It's not Christianity that makes you eat a cracker and then you become a idol worshiper, and it's certainly not Islam that's willing to take on anyone as long as they could do dawah, even if they don't follow the Islamic law. Now, in Judaism, you actually have to follow the law. So if you're interested in becoming a Jew, then you'll have to learn about what it means. and make the life changes, and eventually you'll be able to go to a Jewish Bedin, which is a Jewish court, to be able to convert to Judaism. Jews have always been stateless. Israel is the proof you should remain stateless. That means you're not only illiterate, but you also don't know history. But that's not a surprise. It's not a surprise. It's not a surprise. Number one, if you are Muslim or Christian, that means you believe in the Old Testament, which is what we call Torah. And that means you also believe in the Tanakh. That means you believe in David HaMelech and his son Shlomo HaMelech. Now, at the time of Shlomo and David, not only did we have Israel, but we ruled over, Shlomo HaMelech was the king of the world. So not only did we have the land, but we had domination over the entire world. So this didn't last, obviously, for forever, because the nation sinned and Hashem destroyed the temple. But the point is that Israel was already in the hands of the Jewish people in the past. It's always baffles me how the lies that they've taught you, you've never double-checked. You've never actually done any research yourself. Look at a history book. Look at even your own Quran or Bible or whatever you look at and see that literally you're the only thing you believe in is a lie. These are things that are very, very simple to prove. You don't need to take my word for it. Just look at the history of the land on the internet if you'd like, and you'll see that what you're saying is not only false, it's literally stupid. The only reason why Israel is called Israel is because that is the land that God gave to the Jewish people. He didn't give it to the Palestinians. There was no Palestinians 3,000 years ago. In fact, what most people think is that there were millions of Palestinians here for many, many years, and the Jews just showed up. It's a figment of people's imagination. A figment of people's imagination. The land was not even under Palestinian control before the Jewish people came here. And even before the 1967, you had the Jordanian control, you had British control. There was never a Palestinian country. There was never a Palestinian flag. There was never a Palestinian government. This is simply an imagination that people created for the sake of anarchy and war. As far as Arabs living in Israel, in the early 1900s, although there were more Arabs than Jews here for a period of time, we're not talking about there were millions of Arabs here. There was maybe 500,000 Arabs in the early 1900s, back when the Zionism was just starting to get their voice heard by other politicians around the world. There wasn't like a huge amount of Palestinians here because the land wasn't giving them anything. They sold the land to Jews for peanuts, because anytime the Arabs tried to grow anything in the land of Israel, they failed. Anytime they tried to do anything, they would usually get sick. So they hated the land. The Arabs hated this land. They never liked this land. But of course, I'm sure you were taught something else. But look at history. You'll see that. In fact, there is a lot of writing about Zionism from not just from the Zionist perspective, but from other people, non-Jews that have written about Zionism. Religious Jews like myself writing about it and how it's against the Torah. But the point being is that even if you look at a book that was written by a non-Jew, a Gentile, that's a critic of Zionism. He's not a fan of Zionism. I think it's called The History of Zionism. And around page 135, 136, something like that, you'll see on the bottom right of the page, over there he talks about the death of Herzl. And Herzl, Imach Shemo, he was an enemy of the Jews. Even though he was a Jew himself, he wanted to convert all the Jews to Christianity. He hated Judaism. But the point is that at the time Herzl died, there was, he says it's early 1900s, and there was only 500,000 Palestinians living in the land of Israel at the time. Or you want to call it Palestine at the time, whatever you want to call it. There was only 500,000 Arabs living here. And what you're being taught is different. Now you guys say, no, this is propaganda from the Jewish people. This book wasn't written by Jewish people. And it wasn't even written recently. This book was written maybe 50 years ago, 60 years ago. You can look at it yourself. Like I said, it's called The History of Zionism. It's around page 136, something like that. 130s for sure. It's on the right side. Over there, it talks about the death of Herzl. On the bottom of the page, it gives the number of Palestinians or Arabs. They weren't called Palestinians at the time because, you know, that wasn't a movement yet. Actually, it also says that over there. And anyway, it says there was only about 500,000. So again, there's an enormous amount of material about the topic, but if you're only going to learn your information from the same teachers that have been lying to you and teaching your people to hate for absolutely no reason, then you're never going to grow, you're never going to get out of the hole that you're in, and you're simply going to become a terrorist like everybody else that comes out of there. But if you're going to be clever and actually double check whatever is being taught to you, whether what's being taught to you is from the lecture you're watching right now from me, or double check your information that you learned from somebody else. Double check everything. Be skeptic. You'll see that the truth is very far from what you know. Very, very far. And one of the best testaments for that being the case is that many like you, started checking and ended up becoming pro-Israel rather than pro-Palestine. The people who disagree with you are not terrorists. Depends on what they disagree with me about. If they disagree with me about something that I invented out of my own head, sure, it doesn't make them terrorists. But if they disagree about the issues at hand that we're talking about, which means that they're pro-Hamas and against Israel, then yes, they are terrorists or terrorist supporters. Palestine is a good example of different religions living together harmoniously. If you believe that chopping off heads of the enemies of different religions is harmoniously, then apparently, yeah, I guess you guys have a different definition of harmoniously over there, because that's not the definition the rest of the world has. Why do you feel superior when it's the Christians who protect you? sorry to break the news to you, but the Christians are not protecting me. The only one that's protecting me is God. En od milvado. There's nothing else but Him. He is the only one that's protecting me. He's the only one that decides whether I live or die. He's the only one that decides of whether you live or die. He's the only one that decides of whether we breathe. He's the only one that decides. Now, which tools out of His endless amount of tools He's going to use to allow me to live, allow me to do whatever it is that He wants me to do in the world, that's obviously, He's the one that calls the shots. But if you think for a moment that any human being is in charge of me living or dying, then you are an idol worshiper. What do I think the future looks like? Where do we go from here? I mean, I've made about a dozen lectures about the topic. I mean, it all depends on whether people do tshuva or not, whether people start serving Hashem and repent for their sins, or they continue chasing after the material endeavors. Now, before there's a war in this world, there's a war between the angels of the nations above. And right now there's certainly a war here, but that's not just because, there's a difference of religion or opinions or politics between two countries. It's because people are not following the Torah, and therefore Hashem is bringing them a problem that's going to cause them to question their ideology, their mentality, and their lifestyles. Now, as far as ultimately, there's going to be a much bigger war than the war we have right now. That's called the war of Gog and Magog. And the prophets, Zechariah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Obadiah, pretty much all of the prophets talk about it in one way or another. The most extensive information is in Zechariah chapter 14 and Ezekiel chapter 38. Talks about the end of the world, as we know it, the war of Gog and Magog, or the Third World War, is what it's probably going to be called. And in this war, 2/3 of the world will die, and the last third, some of them will survive, not all of them. And but at that time, the Mashiach is going to come, and he's going to become not only the ruler of the Jewish people, but the ruler of the world. And there's not going to be any other beliefs that are antithetical to the Torah, that are against the Torah. Now, of course, all of the anti-Semites that constantly, say that Jews are looking for world domination and they want to enslave everyone, certainly they're going to use that part of the speech and say, look, they're saying that their Messiah is going to be the king of the world. I don't want him to be my king. One of their demented ways that they try to express themselves. But this is what the Torah says, meaning this is what God decreed. This is what God decided is going to happen in the world, and no power in the world is going to stop it. Now, when it's going to happen, God has to decide when it's going to happen. We don't know. But ultimately it will happen. Ultimately will happen. Whether that's now, or it's soon, or it's later on, it's only a matter of time. But ultimately, the Jewish Messiah will come, and he will rule the world in the name of God. There's not going to be any other religions. There's not going to be anything against it that's other than the Torah. There's not going to be any Quran. There's not going to be any New Testament. None of that stuff. There's only going to be the Torah. Now, who is going to survive? It's not going to be just Jews. It's going to be righteous Jews and righteous Gentiles, because obviously if 1/3 of the world survives, more or less, then the Jewish people are not 1/3 of the world. Even if all of them survive, it's still not going to come up to even close to 1/3 of the world. You have approximately 8 billion people in the world right now. If 2/3 of them are gone and only 1/3 is left. You're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2 billion or so, 2.5 billion. So even if you get all of the Jewish people in the world, you have maybe, that we know of, you have maybe 20 million. So 20 million is not even 1% of 2.5 billion. Meaning there's still going to be a lot of Gentiles in the world that survive, but they're going to be among the righteous Gentiles. They're not going to be the Hamasniks. They're not going to be the Palestinian terrorists. They're not going to be Hezbollah. They're not going to be any anti-Semite that's out there or any idolater. It's going to be righteous Gentiles. And those righteous Gentiles are going to have a part of the world to come. They'll live wonderful lives, not just now, but forever. But again, that means they have to pass the test. So as far as when this is going to happen, we don't know. Details of what happens, I've spoken about in other lectures you can watch on my website and YouTube channel. As far as what happens to actually lead that to happen, all of the signs of this happening are happening as we speak or happened recently. Meaning that if all of this were to happen soon, it wouldn't be a surprise to people that are aware of all the details of the Torah. If it doesn't happen soon, it's also not going to surprise because God has different calculations than we do, and can decide to change certain things as far as timing of things, delay things. But the point is that all of the signs that we know of that will happen before this big day of God is gonna come to the world, they're happening as we speak, or they've happened over the last 20 or 30 years. Whether it's the red heifer, or it's the majority of the people living in the land of Israel being Jews, or it's many other prophecies that we've spoken about. But as far as world peace and things like that, that's not something that's going to happen until Mashiach comes. Which nations declare Hamas to be terrorist? I don't know. Go look at Wikipedia. What do I care what other nations say? Sorry to break it to you, you're not superior. No one's superior. Everyone is equal. Okay, fine. Now, because you made that comment, we all are going to change our minds. And we're going to be dumb like you, communist like you. Thank you. Thank you for making us communists. Like when you're writing a comment like that, do you actually think before you write? Or you just write like a robot? Like, are you AI? Or are you actually a human being? Like, I'm just thinking to myself, you actually like put those words together. Maybe somebody helped you because, you probably have problems with language or, using your brain and hands at the same time. But let's just say you wrote this comment and you said everyone is equal. That was like the, totality of the of your intellect. Hopefully smoke didn't come out of your ears at the time. But let's just think of that. You're saying you're not superior. Everyone is equal. Okay. Now, what did you think you're gonna get out of that? What did you think? Did you think like now that you've made this major statement, it's gonna be like on the New York Times maybe? Maybe they're gonna make a show on cable channels around the world. Maybe they're going to make bumper stickers, and perhaps your face is going to be there next to that statement, everyone is equal. Or perhaps people will start a new religion. We'll start a new religion. The guy that made the comment, or whoever it is, the creature that made the comment, everyone is equal. That's the new... Like, what did you think was going to come out of there? Did you think that far, or the smoke was getting too hot? What did you think? Seriously. No? You're not going to respond? Okay, I guess maybe overheated. All right, fine. We'll wait for you to cool off. Maybe put your head in the freezer. I've seen some Jewish boys wrap this long black string around their arms, and I'm curious what that is. That's called tefillin. Tefillin, and in English I think they call it phylacteries, something like that. But in Hebrew it's called tefillin. And it's a biblical commandment from God to put it on our arm and on our head. For men only, not for women. What are the teachings of Judaism that promote peace and understanding in today's world? There is Parashat Kitavo in the book of Deuteronomy. Also there's Parashat Bechukotai. And both of them start with blessings that Am Yisrael will get if they follow the Torah, which one of those blessings includes peace. Peace where the enemies will no longer be enemies because they'll be scared of us, and there'll be peace and harmony, and so on and so forth. When the Jewish people serve God the right way, and there is world peace. When the Jews don't, or many of them don't, then it creates problems not just for the Jews but for the whole world. And that's because the manual for this world, the blueprint for this world, is the Torah. Yeshua will come and treat you like a Pharisee. No, Yeshua is actually in boiling feces right now, stinking up the joint. So he's not coming anywhere. He's busy somewhere else. But if you go there too, you can say hi for me if you'd like. And say that Imach Shimcha v'zichra. He'll understand what I mean. Is Hamas freedom fighters or terrorists? If that's a serious question, then I'll answer it and I'll say terrorists. If it's not a serious question, you should get mental help. People. Oh, here we go, you're back. Yeah, here you go. He got mad because I said we're all equal. Tells you everything you need to know about this guy. Yeah, I have a brain, and Baruch Hashem, it's relatively advanced. And you still didn't get the point that equality is not only something that is anti-God and anti-Torah and anti-humanity, it's called communism, but even you yourself do not believe in equality. And I'll prove it to you. You have a Muslim name, so obviously you're Muslim or you're Arab of descent. So, your women, do they have freedom like the men do? No. Why? Because you don't believe in equality. You don't believe in equality. Your leaders, do they have the same freedom as the regular people? No. Why? Because you don't believe in equality. You don't believe in equality. People that don't have the same opinion or religion as you, do they have the same freedom among you, if they want to live among you? No. Why? Because you don't have freedom. The problem is that you live in a video game and you call that reality. When you come back to when you actually come to real reality, then you'll know that everything you said is stupid. It's not just communist, it's stupid. It's simply tumtum. Like in your language, chmal. You call the chmal. You know what chmal is? That's what you're called, chmal. Why? Because to say equality, everyone is equal, is just a dumb thing to say. Simple. Not giving you anything new. You go to any scholar or intellect of any religion and tell them what you said. Most likely in your backyard, they'll probably slap you in the face for saying it. At least I'm not slapping you. At least I'm just insulting you. That's it. Okay, I've had enough fun with you guys. The rest of the questions are not, either I answered them, or they're not questions, or they're just not really worthy of response. But we'll see you again tomorrow. Bezat Hashem. Hashem bless you that came here to learn. Curse you for those people that came to bicker and fight and talk about all their hatred. Just like this week's parasha says in Parashat Lech Lecha, where Hashem says to Avraham Avinu, I will bless those that bless you and curse those that curse you. So all of those that came to bless are blessed. And all of those that came to curse, Bezat Hashem, you'll see your curse come to reality very soon. Kol Tuv, B'cha V'Atzlacha, and Bezat Hashem, we'll see each other tomorrow.